Hello. As you can see, today I'll be talking about Star Wars Outer Rim. I first played this in 2020, I believe, and hadn't played it again since until yesterday when I got it out and played um, solo to refresh myself on the rules. And actually, when I played it back in 2020, I played it solo at that time too, and not using the AI, just solo as three players. And that's the same way I played it yesterday. But I do have a couple of friends coming on Labor Day weekend, and this is one of the games we are going to play, so that's why I got it out to refresh myself on the rules. So I figured I'd make a video. So let's get started with how to set it up. First thing you'll do is assemble the map with the map tiles according to this diagram. Now there is an alternate method for more advanced players where you can draw the tiles at random and set them up, but I'm going with the suggested setup for first time players, so I'm going to set up the map tile according to this picture. So once that's done, your uh, board should look like this, and you should have the Imperial Hut end cap here and the Rebel Syndicate end cap on this side. Next, you'll set up your patrol tokens. You'll separate the four factions patrol tokens, and you'll put, they each have a number of pips here. You'll put the one with the level 4 on the bottom, then the level 3, then the level 2, and the level 1 on top. And then you find the end cap space that matches it, and you put that stack on top. So I've done that for the Rebels, the Syndicate, the Imperial, and the Hut. Then you take the level 1, turn it over, and put it on the nav point adjacent to its start space for each of the factions. Then you take all the contact tokens like this, put them face down. This is face up. That shows who the contact is. You want to put them face down, mix them up to randomize them. Oops. Oh Lord. And then you'll notice each planet has a place to put contacts on it. So you'll just grab one at random that matches the color. So that's a white. And it also matches the number of pips. But all whites have, one pip. All yellows have 3 pips. All greens have 2 pips. So you'll just randomly place one that matches on each planet around the board. So I'll do that and come back. Alright, so as you can see, I've got 2 contacts at each planet. And again, that matches the colored pip and the color border and number of pips on the contact. So once you've done that, you shouldn't have any more contact tokens to use. Next, you'll just create supplies next to the board within reach of all players of your credits. These are 5,000 credits, 1,000 credits, and 10,000 credits. Your damage tokens and your gold tokens. So you'll just make those into a supply somewhere. Next, each player will roll all 6 dice, and the player who rolls the most hits or crit hits, whoever rolls the most of those becomes the first player, takes the character cards and chooses one character to play. So they'll take that character with the personal goal side. See, it's double-sided. You'll start with the personal goal side face up. You'll take the matching standee. You'll get a player board. You put your character card in it like so, and make sure that your fame marker is on the 0 spot. All the player boards are the same, just kind of a different color. You'll get 4 reputation markers that match the 4 factions of the game, and then you place them on the icons on the uh, reputation track that match on the board. So the syndicate reputation marker there, the hut there, Imperial there, and Rebel there. You'll take one starter ship, and you can either have it on the G9 rigger side or the whatever this is, G1A starfighter side. That's your choice. The difference being on the starfighter side, you have a movement value of 5, a fight value of 3, and an armor value of 4, whereas on the G9 rigger side, you've got a movement value of 6, so one more than the other side, but a fight value of only 2, which is one less, and an armor value of 3, which is one less than the other side. So your choice. So we'll just say old Han here is going to start with the G9 rigger side, and you just put that kind of in the notch of one side of your player board, either that side or this side, whichever I guess you have more room with. Each player gets one reference card that kind of shows what you can do on your turn. And then credit tokens. The first player starts with 4,000 credits. The second player will get 6,000 credits, third player 8,000 credits, and if you're playing the 4 players, the fourth player will get 10,000 credits. So the first player will take all of that, then the next player in clockwise order would be the second player, and they would get to choose a character and get all of their pieces and ship and so forth also. So let me get that done. I'm going to set up for a 3-player game. Alright, these player boards and ship cards kind of take up a lot of room. So my second player is going to be Dr. Aphra, which I had no idea who that was. I had to look it up, and apparently that's a Star Wars comic book character. So that's my second player. And then my third player is Boba Fett. And so I've got ship and player card and credits set up for him. Alright, then each player will look at the bottom of their character card, and they'll see a setup section. It says that, like here, it shows Han starts with the setup card 91 out of your databank cards. So your databank deck is this deck of cards, and they're assembled in numerical order. So you just look through this, and for Han you find card 91. So here I got to 91. You'll see it has 3 pips on it. That means there's actually 3 number 91 cards. So you can choose any one of those. When you assemble the deck, you kind of randomize those so you don't know which one you're getting. So you just choose one of the 91s, and that ends up being a cargo for Han. So he'll just put that in a cargo slot. So you see on his ship, he has a cargo space, and it says it's a starting planet, so that's where his character will start. So Han will start on the planet Lothal. So you find that on the map, which is here, so we'll put his character there, and then we can go ahead and slide this cargo under here so it's just visible right there. Then it also shows that he starts with negative hut reputation, so you actually go to the reputation track, find the icon for hut, and move it down to negative. So your reputation is only in 3 spots. It's either a negative, neutral, or positive. So anyway, he starts with negative hut reputation. So let me do the setup for the other 2 characters I've got playing. So you'll see that Dr. Aphra here started with a job, which we'll explain what those are in a little bit, but that slides up under her player board where it says jobs or bounty, and she started with positive imperial reputation. All right, trying to hold this with my right hand, and she started over here on Ord Mantell. Boba Fett started here on Mon Calamari, and he started with a bounty card, which so you slide it under his player board where it says job or bounty, and again we'll talk about bounties when we're going over the rules. And he started with positive Hutt reputation. Next you take the 6 different market decks and shuffle them and place each deck somewhere near the board. I kind of set mine underneath the map like so. So anyway, you take the 6 different market decks, shuffle each stack, and lay them somewhere near the board. Then you flip over the top card of each stack, and maybe if I turn it right. Anyway, turn over the top card of each stack. You just place your databank deck. Remember, that stays in numerical order. You don't ever shuffle that, except for you may want to randomize the cards that there's multiple of the same number. Anyway, and just place that in easy reach of all players. Then you'll shuffle the encounter decks. You'll separate them into their different card backs. So this one's Cantonica, Ord Mardell, Mon Calamari, Lothal, Kessel the Maelstrom, Tatooine Nalhutta, Ryloth Naboo, the Ring of Kafrene, and Takodana, and then just nav points. So you'll create those 7 different decks, shuffle each deck separately, and then just place them somewhere near the planets that they go along with on the map. And then nav points just somewhere near that also. So when I have mine set up, it kind of looks like that. Place your unused ship sheets just somewhere nearby. Those can be used when players purchase a new ship, and then of course your dice just somewhere nearby. And that should be it for setup. Should have all players ready to go. So next we'll go over how to play. Alright, so starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise, each player will take their turn, and on their turn they'll perform 3 steps. The encounter step, then the action step. The first step is the planning step, then the action step, and then the encounter step. So in the planning step, one of the things you can do is move. So when you move along spaces that are connected by these paths on the map, and you have 3 different types of spaces. You have nav point spaces, planet spaces, and then there's a maelstrom space. So when you're going to move, you look on your current ship and look at the hyperdrive value, which is here, and that shows the number of spaces that you can move. So for instance, if Han was going to move, his hyperdrive value is 6. Now actually, Han has a special power that gives him +2 to his hyperdrive value, so his is actually 8. Each character, we probably should have looked at that, has a special power on their character card, so his is +2 to his hyperdrive value. Boba Fett gives him an extra action, which he can secretly look at one contact on his planet. And let's see what old Dr. Aphra's is. Once per turn, before you perform a skill test, you may gain a skill of your choice for that test. And when we talk about those things later, actions and skill tests, that'll make more sense. But anyway, back to movement. When you move along the map, if you're going to move, if Han can move up to 8, he can move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, when you move into a space with a patrol, if you don't have positive reputation with that faction that you move into the patrol space, then you must stop. If you have positive reputation with that faction when you move onto their patrol token, then you don't have to stop. You can keep going. But if you've just got neutral or negative reputation, then you must stop. The only other space that can cause you to stop movement is the maelstrom. When you enter the maelstrom space, which is this red one here, you must stop. And for both of these, the maelstrom or a patrol token that you don't have a positive reputation with, you have to stop when you move into their space. But if you start your planning step where you're already in that space, then they don't prevent you. You don't have to stop to move out of that space. All right, so that's one option you have in your planning step, is to move. If you don't choose to move, another option you have is just to gain 2,000 credits. And your third option is to recover all damage on if you've got damage on your ship or on your character card, you can just recover, in other words, remove all that damage. Well, that's it. It just allows you to remove, they say recover damage, but remove damage from your ship or your character card is the other option. Now, there may be some other abilities you get later in the game from your character or cards that may say planning on them, which gives you another option of something you could do in the planning step. But for most people, unless you get an additional planning ability, you just have the option in your planning step to move, gain 2,000 credits, or recover all damage. So after you've completed one of those options in your planning step, next you go to the action step. So in the action step, you have normally four possible actions. Some characters or cards may give you other possibilities, but the standard actions is you can trade. If you're in the same space with another character, then you're allowed to trade cargo, crew, ship mods, gear, jobs, any of those. You can trade amongst the players. You can trade amongst a player that you're in their space, or if you're in the same space with more than one player, you can trade with them. They can't trade amongst each other, but they can trade with you. If you're the one taking the trade action, any players in your space can trade with you, but they can't trade with each other. Now, you're limited to trading cards during your trade action. You can actually trade credits or promises at any time on your turn with other players, and you don't even have to be on the same space. You could tell another player, hey, loan me 2,000 credits, or give me 2,000 credits and I'll do such and such for you, next turn or something like that. But as far as taking the trade action to trade cards like cargo, jobs, mods, that kind of thing, you can only do that with players that are in your space and if you take a trade action. Okay, another possible action you can take is the market action. But you can only do that if you're on a planet. If you're on a nav point, you can't take the market action. But if you're on a planet, you can take the market action. And what that allows you to do is, first, you have the option to discard one of the top cards from one of these market decks. And when you discard a card from a market deck, you just take it from the top and put it face down on the bottom of the deck, and then flip over the top card of one deck. After you've done that, or that's optional, you don't have to do that, then you have the option to buy one card from one of these decks. So you could, for instance, here buy a mod for your ship. This is the price. You could buy a cargo. That's, the prices for all these up at the top. Something like a job may cost nothing, like this one. This one cost 1,000 for this crew. This is a gear, and this is a new ship. Now, for anything like a gear, a crew, a job, a cargo, you have to have an available slot for it. So, like at this ship, you only have, well, most all the starter ships, you have a spot for one cargo, one mod, and one crew. Now, later, as you get new ships like this one, you can see has a spot for a cargo, and then a cargo or a mod, and then up to 3 crew. So different ships have different slots available. Now, you can, if you have a cargo and you want to buy a new cargo, you can buy that and discard your old cargo. And again, when you discard it, just goes face down to the bottom of the deck. But anyway, you have the option to buy one of these possible cards off of the market deck when you take a market action. If you do buy a card, let's say you bought this cargo, slide it in your cargo, then you reveal the top card of the deck that you just bought the card from, and if it has an icon like this, it's a patrol movement icon, and what that shows is the faction's patrol that's going to move and how many spaces they're going to move. So in this case, the rebel patrol is going to move 4 spaces towards you. So whenever patrol movement happens, they're moving toward you. So if Han did this action, and when he revealed this card, the rebel faction that's on the board would move 4 spaces toward him. So 1, 2, 3, 4, because he's over here. And of course, if they were less than 4 spaces away, they would just move until they got to where you are, and then they would stop moving. And that patrol movement happens only when you buy or gain a card from the market. If you are just discarding a card from the market, like I said, one of the first things you can do if you take the market action is discard the top card from a deck and reveal a new one. If that's what you're doing, then even if that card you reveal has a patrol movement on it, you don't move the patrol. It's only when you've gained a card from the market that when you reveal the top card of that deck that the patrol movement happens. And if a patrol moves into your space, you don't have combat with that patrol at that time, even if you have negative reputation with that patrol. The only time you have combat with a patrol or that you're forced to have combat with the patrol is during your encounter action or your encounter step if you're in the same space with a patrol that you have negative reputation with. But we'll talk about that here more shortly. If you buy a ship from this deck, for instance, if you bought this one here, you would acquire that ship card out of the stack of ships, replace your old ship with it, and you would always place it with the side up that says ship goal. Then once you complete that goal, then it usually says to flip this over to the other side. But whenever you acquire a new ship, again, you start with the ship goal side up first. And again, it replaces your old ship, and your old ship just goes back into this stack. The starting ships do not have a goal. And after you've purchased that ship and got the ship sheet, then you just discard this card out of the game. It doesn't get discarded under the stack, it just gets removed from the game. And that's stated here, ship. Gain this ship's sheet and remove this card from the game. And when you're buying cards from the market deck with a market action, if you have gear like say you had this cargo already and you wanted to buy this mod here, you could what they call barter. So you could discard this card for its value of 1,000, and then you would only owe 14,000 for this mod. So you could do that with cargo, mods, or gear. You can barter with those, discard those that you already have to get their value toward what you're trying to purchase if you want to. And similarly with ships that you're purchasing, now your starter ship, you can't barter with that because it's worth 0. But if you had this ship, you had gotten this ship during the game, and it's worth 10,000, and then later you're trying to buy a more expensive ship, you could barter with this ship and turn it in and get 10,000 for it, and then you'll only owe like if you were buying a $20,000 ship, then you would only owe an additional 10,000. Okay, so that's the market action. Another action you can take is the deliver action. So for instance, if you have some cargo, like Hans starts out with this cargo here, its destination is Tatooine. So if on his turn he's moved and is on the planet Tatooine, for one of his actions he can deliver this cargo and gain the reward shown, which is 5,000 credits. And if you have more than one cargo, you can deliver them all for, like if you had 2 cargo slots and you had 2 cargo and both had to be delivered to Tatooine, and that's where you were, you could deliver them both for one deliver action. And when you deliver a cargo, you discard it by just putting it to the bottom of its market deck, or if it's like Hans' cargo here is actually a databank card, so that would just go back in the databank. Other than cargo, something else that you might need to deliver with a deliver action is a bounty. So for instance, we'll look at Boba Fett here. If he we'll talk about doing bounties in a little bit, but if he had captured Ponda Baba here, and it shows where he can deliver Ponda Baba's token to Takodana to gain 10,001 fame. So if he had Ponda Baba and had his token here on this bounty card, and he moved to Takodana, he could do a deliver action to deliver him and then gain the 10,000 credits and 1 fame. So again, with the action, during your action step, you can do trade action, market action, deliver action, and then you may have a card or an ability that lets you do an action. For instance, we saw that on Boba Fett. He has, for an action, he can secretly look at one contact on his planet. So, he's here. He could secretly look at one of these contacts, see what it is, and then put it back without showing the other players. So, and you may get cards that give you some kind of action that you can do also. So that's another type of action you can do. Now you can do, when you're doing your action step, you can do any or all of those actions, but you can only do each action one time during your action step. Okay, after the action step, then you take your encounter step. So the possible encounter actions are, first, if you're in the same space as a patrol, you may encounter that patrol. If you have neutral or positive reputation with that patrol, you don't have to encounter it. You have the option. If you have negative reputation with that patrol and you're in the same space as it, then you must encounter it. That must be the encounter you do for your encounter step. So when you encounter a patrol, basically you're going to fight a battle against it. So, we'll just say, for example, if Boba Fett. We'll just say this patrol was in Boba Fett's space, and he either has to encounter it or decides to encounter it. Patrol encountering or a combat with a patrol is always a ship combat. So you'll see this icon here. This shows the number of dice that they're going to roll. That's their combat value, and this whatever is shown down here in green is what the reward that you'll get if you defeat that patrol. So in this case, he would get to roll 3 dice, and then Boba Fett would look at his ship's combat value, which is also 3 dice. This right here is his armor value, so if he takes 4 hits, he'll be defeated. So the attacker rolls first, and the attacker is always the person who's taking their turn. So in this case, he would roll 3 dice. Any hit like that counts as 1 hit. So that would be 1, 2 hits, 3 hits. So that'd be a total of 3 hits. If you roll a crit when you're doing combat, that counts as 2 hits. So that would actually be 4 hits. If you roll the eye or focus icon, that doesn't count as a hit, but you may have some card or ability that makes it have some value. But normally in combat, the hits count as 1 hit and a crit counts as 2 hits. So the attacker would roll his, then the person, when you're doing a patrol combat against a patrol, the person to the current player's left, the attacker's left, would roll for the patrol, so they would roll 3 dice. In that case, 2 hits, so whoever gets the most hits wins the combat. Now, because the patrol did roll 2 hits, Boba Fett's ship would have to take 2 damage, but it can actually take up to 4 damage before he's defeated. But he would have won the combat because he had 4, and the patrol only got 2, so he got more hits, so he wins. And when you win combat against a patrol, you get the reward list there. So again, like I said, he would get 5,000 credits. And then he would have to lose 1 reputation with this faction. So he would go down 1 reputation here to negative reputation with the syndicate. Then this patrol token is just discarded out of the game. And the next one in the stack for that faction is then spawned and placed on the first step of the, adjacent to its stack. And as you can see, they become stronger as they go along. Now the reward for defeating this guy is 1 fame. If you lose a combat with a patrol, then the only thing that happens is you move that patrol token 1 space away from you in any direction. And that's it. Other than you probably have taken some damage from any hits that were rolled against you. If you ever take enough damage that it equals your armor value, then you're defeated. Now, if you rolled more hits in the combat and won the combat but still took enough damage that you're defeated, you still get the reward for the combat, but then you're defeated. And when you're defeated, you just tip your character over in the spot where he was defeated. You lose any secrets that you have, and secrets are something that you'll get and we'll talk about later in a little bit, but if you have any secrets, you lose those. You also lose 3,000 credits if you have it. If you have it to lose, then you lose it. Then you finish the current step of the turn that you're taking, and then you can't perform any more steps. Then your turn is just over. Then during your next planning step, you have to take the option to recover all damage, and then you remove all damage and stand yourself back up, and then you can move on to your action step. Okay, so all that was basically to talk about one possible encounter type, which is encountering a patrol that's in your space. Again, if a patrol is in your space, you don't have to encounter it unless you have negative reputation with it, but you can choose to encounter it, if you just want to try to fight it to get the reward. All right, the other type of encounter you can do is an encounter in your space. If you're on a nav point, you draw a nav point card, and then it'll say no patrol or patrol. If there's no patrol there, then you read and do whatever it says there. If there is a patrol there, then you read and do whatever it says here. Now, I was kind of talking about secrets a minute ago. Whenever you get one like this, it's like gray and the text is upside down, then that's a secret, which you get and you don't have to read it out loud. You just see what it says and put it and keep it in your area, and you can use it depending on whatever. Like this one is actually an action that you can do on your turn. So that's one type of encounter. If you like here, if you did an encounter in your space for Mon Calamari, then you would draw this card. You'd look at the whatever it says for Mon Calamari. Again, this is a secret, so you would get to keep that. If you were drawing it here for Lothal, then you would read this text out loud, and basically it's saying you can gain this cargo below. So if you want to, you could take this cargo and put it in one of your cargo slots. So again, you can encounter in your space. So at either a nav point, you would draw a nav point card, or if you're on a planet or in the maelstrom, you draw the corresponding card and read the section of that card that corresponds to the space you're in. All right, another type of encounter you can choose to do if, say, you're Boba Fett here on Mon Calamari. Again, you could either do the encounter your space and draw a card and do what it says for Mon Calamari, or because there's two contacts here, you can encounter a contact. So if you want to encounter a contact, you can turn it over, choose one, turn it over, and then, for instance, this one here is Dengar, and it has this number 8 here. So you'd turn it over, and then you'd find card number 8 here in the databank deck and read that card and do whatever it says. We'll just look at this one. So here's card number 8, and you'd read the text, and it says if you have at least one negative reputation, fight a ground combat against Dengar, and blah blah blah. So you do whatever it says on the card. And ground combat, that one said fight a ground combat. Ground combat works similar to what we saw for the ship combat. Well, instead of using your ship's attack value there, you use your attack value shown on your character card here, which that would be 3 dice, and then this is your armor value. And you may have gear that modifies your attack value or armor value. And it's the same, so then that card would probably showed what his attack value was, and so then it's the same. You roll dice. If you get more hits, then you win and get whatever it said you win. Again, if you take more hits than your value, you'll be defeated. Even if you win the combat, again, if you do win the combat by getting more hits, you still get whatever the reward is. But if you took enough hits where it equals or exceeds your armor value, then you're defeated. Now, the other option you have when you're encountering a contact is if you have a bounty for the contact you encounter. For instance, Boba Fett here, he's looking for Ponda Baba. So if he goes to a planet, he knows Ponda Baba is a white encounter token. So he'd go around looking, searching these white encounter tokens. And when he finds Ponda Baba, he would encounter his token. But he could choose, instead of going for his databank card, Ponda Baba's databank card, since he has a bounty for him, he could choose to fight him, and this would be his fight value here. If he wins the combat, then he can do one of these two things. He can just eliminate him, and gain 5,000 credits and 1 fame, or he can capture him and put his token on the card, and then he'll have to deliver him somewhere, like for this one we talked about earlier, to Takodana. So if he captures him instead of just eliminate him, then he captures him and goes and delivers him to Takodana, he gets a little bit better reward. So you have the choice of either just going ahead and eliminating him right then and there, or capturing them and trying to take them. But you can do either one as long as you defeat them in the combat. If you lose the combat, then the contact just stays where it is, and you can keep your bounty card and try again in the future to try to do the bounty and fight and encounter that contact again and try to win the combat to get the bounty. It can and may happen that you may get a bounty for somebody that you have as a crew member on your ship. So if that happens, you can just decide to never try to get that bounty and keep them as a crew if you think they're that valuable. Or you can, as your encounter, you can fight that crew member for whatever it shows on their bounty sheet. And if you win, then you take their token from wherever it is, probably in some discard pile somewhere, and put it on. Well, if you choose to capture them, of course, you can just eliminate them. But if you capture them, then you find their token and put it on your card. And, of course, discard the crew card. But if you lose, then you discard the crew card back to the bottom of its market deck, and you have to put their contact token on the nearest planet that has an available empty space from where you're located. If you get a bounty for somebody that's a crew member of another player's ship, you can move to the same space of where that other player is, and for your encounter, again, try to fight that contact to eliminate or capture it, but the other player has the option to use their character to try to defend that crew member, and you have to fight their character instead. And if they choose to do that, protect their crew, and you got to attack the other player. If they're on a planet, you fight a ground combat. Of course, they would use their abilities, and you would use your ground combat abilities. And if they're not on a planet, then you would fight a ship combat, and of course they would use their ship combat's abilities. If that player decides not to try to protect their crew, then you can just fight the crew as normal per whatever is on your bounty card. And again, either way, if you win, then you would take the contact and they would have to discard the card. If you lose, then they just keep their crew member, and of course both sides would still get any damage they got from the combat. So those are the different kind of encounters. You can encounter a patrol, you can encounter a space you're in where you draw a card, or you can encounter a contact that's associated with the planet you're on. And again, the two ways to encounter a contact is either just flip it over and do its databank card, or if you have a bounty on that person and you'd rather try to encounter and fight them to eliminate or capture them, then you do that. So those are the steps for a turn. You got your planning step, action step, and encounter step. After you've done all three of those, then it goes to the next player and they do their 3 steps and so forth. Now, some things we haven't talked about. You may get a card, a databank card, or some other card that says they want you to test a skill like piloting. Well, you'll see the bottom of these character cards have skills, and as you get crew, they have skills on the bottom of their cards also, or they may. And those skills come into play when you're testing, doing a skill test. So, for instance, if Han here got, some card that he was doing that said he needed to test piloting, well, because he has that skill, he would have a little better chance at completing that skill test than if he didn't have piloting skill. So, what happens whenever you test a skill? You roll 2 dice. If you have no skill, like if you were testing, we'll say here, Boba Fett, if he was testing piloting, well, he doesn't have piloting ability. He's just got stealth and tactics. So he has no skill. So he rolls 2 dice. For him to be successful and pass, he would have to roll at least 1 crit. And there's only 1 of those on each of these 8-sided dice. So your odds are not very good. So if you have no skill in whatever skill you're testing for, you roll 2 dice and you have to get a crit to be successful, otherwise you fail. If you do have the skill, like if Boba Fett was testing something that required tactic, like he was testing tactics, he would roll two dice and he would be successful if he rolled a crit or any hit, which there's, what do we got? 1, 2, 3. So 3 hits and 1 crit on each die. So you have a better chance. So he would be successful there. If you have that skill more than once, say for instance, Boba Fett was testing tactics and he's got tactics and maybe had a crew that also had tactics. So he has that skill more than once, then he's highly skilled. So he would be successful on any hit, crit, or focus result. So you have a lot better chance of being successful in that case. And that's all shown on each player gets one of these reference cards that I mentioned, and it shows, your steps, planning steps. You can move or gain 2,000 or recover damage, action step. You can perform any or all, deliver cargo, market action if you're on a planet, or trade cards. Encounter step, you choose one. But what I was talking about is shows on the skill test. If you're unskilled, you only are successful on a crit. If you are skilled, then you're successful on a crit or a hit. And if you're highly skilled, you have the skill more than once, then you're successful on a crit, hit, or focus. And we can see an example of that over here when we look at Dr. Aphra. She has a job card. We talked about bounty cards and cargo cards. Well, she has this job card. So to complete this job, she has to go to Nal Hutta, which is right here. And then during her encounter step, she has to test piloting. So that's when she would do a skill test. Now you can see she's got knowledge, stealth, and tech. She doesn't have piloting. So unless she acquired a crew member that had piloting skill, she wouldn't have a very good odds of completing this, because she would roll the 2 dice and only be successful if she got a crit, which odds are that are not very good. But if you pass, you complete this job. So if you complete the job, then you gain the reward shown. And then here it says remove this card from the game. And if you fail, your ship suffers 1 damage. But usually if you fail a job, like this one says you suffer 1 damage. But you keep the job, and then you can try it again in the future. So I think one of the other things we haven't talked about is these characters each start with a personal goal. So for instance, Han's personal goal here is to have a ship with a cost of at least 15,000. If he does, then he gains 1 fame and flip this card. And then he gets another little bonus here after that. When you move into patrol space, you may test piloting. If you pass, you do not have to end your movement in that space. So again, everybody starts on the side with a personal goal, but once you complete that personal goal, then you flip it over. We'll just look at Boba Fett's 2. He has a personal goal, gain reward from 2 bounties. So these goal tokens are used to kind of mark. So if he did 1 bounty, then he would put a goal token on there so he knows he's done 1. Then when he completes a 2nd bounty, then he would know he's completed this personal goal and get to flip his card. So I think that pretty much covers, most of the basic rules. Of course, there's going to be cards that kind of say different things and give different abilities and such, but I've gone over most of the rules of the game. So I think best thing we can do from here is just show a few example turns, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, and I don't know, I may not have even mentioned this yet, how to win the game. It's the first player. If you look at the fame track, for the standard game, the first player to get to 10 fame wins the game. It said for your first game, you should probably only play till 8 fame, and for a longer game, you can play up to 10 fame, or up to 12 fame if you want, but the standard winning condition is 10 fame. And the game ends immediately as soon as a player gets enough fame to win the game. And there is, on that player reference card that I've shown a couple times, it does show ways to gain fame from personal goals, ship goals, bounties, jobs, delivering illegal cargo. We didn't talk about illegal cargo, but that may come up in our example turns here. But usually when you're trying to deliver an illegal cargo, you have to roll a die before you deliver it, and if you don't get a hit, then you can't deliver it. Let's see, win combat against patrols level 2 and 3, and buy cards from the luxury, I think that's luxury market deck, that's this one. And yeah, those usually are expensive, but they usually get you fame. Anyway, all right, let's go through some example turns. All right, Han is our first player. He's got a personal goal where he wants to get a more expensive ship, and he starts out with a cargo, so that's probably what he wants to do is go to Tatooine and deliver this cargo. Now remember, he's got hyperdrive value of 6, but he's got +2, so he can move up to 8. So for his planning phase, or his planning step, he's going to go ahead and move. So he's going to move 8 toward Tatooine. He starts out here, so he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he almost made it to Tatooine, but not quite. So that's the end of his planning phase or step. Now he's at his action step, which there's really not much he can do. He can't deliver because he's not on Tatooine to deliver it. He's not on a planet, so he can't do a market action. He doesn't have any kind of action things on his card or anything. He's not in the same space as a player, so he can't trade. So really, there's nothing for him to do on his action step, so he's just going to move on to his encounter step. And really the only thing he can do on his encounter step, since he's on a nav point, he's not with a patrol, he's not anywhere he can do a contact encounter or anything, so he's just going to do an encounter to draw a nav point card. So there's not a patrol there, so he does the no patrol. If you have positive or neutral hut reputation, well, he's got negative hut reputation, so he's got to do, if you have negative hut reputation, they found you. Move the hut patrol to your space and encounter it. Well, that's not too good. All right, here's the hut patrol. Goes to his space, and now he's got to encounter it. So he's got to fight. It's got a 3. It rolls 3 combat. His ship only has 2 combat. So he rolls first. He rolls 2 dice. He got nothing. No hits. Alright, now the person to this person's left, but since I'm playing solo, I just roll the dice for the encounter, or for the contact, the patrol. And they got 1, just, oh, but they got a crit, so that counts as 2. So they won. So because they win, he just moves the patrol 1 space in any direction. He's going to move him over here. But he does have to take 2 damage. And since that was a ship combat, it goes on his ship. If he would have taken 3, he would be defeated, but he didn't. Alright, so now this just gets discarded to the bottom of this nav point pile. And that's the end of his turn. Alright, so now we go on to Dr. Aphra. She probably wants to do this job, but it requires testing piloting, but she does have this thing where she can gain a skill, so she needs to go to that. She needs to go to Nal Hutta, so I think she'll head that way. Her hyperdrive value is 5, so she's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so she doesn't make it there. So she really can't do any actions either, so she's just going to move to her encounter step. So she's got no patrol, so she gets this secret, which is she can, for an action, discard this card and choose another player in your space. That player decides either to have no effect or to have each of you gain 1 fame. Anyway, so she keeps this secret face down in her play area, and she can use that as an action when she wants to. But any secrets that she's never used, if she gets defeated, they just get discarded. Alright, that's going to end her turn. Now we go on to Boba Fett's turn. Well, he's got this bounty. He needs to find Ponda Baba. Oh, I should have flipped this back over because we are starting like we're brown. I mean, we're starting a new game. But he knows he needs, knows he needs to search these white tokens to try to find Ponda Baba. So he's going to move for his planning step. He's got a hyperdrive value of 5. So he's going to come over here to Lothal because there's a white token. So 1, 2. That's his planning step. Now he goes to his action step. Now remember, he has an action where he can secretly look at 1 contact. So he's going to do that for one of his actions. Oh, and there's old Ponda Baba. So he knows that's what he's going to do on his encounter step. But he still has other actions he can do because he is on a planet. So he can do, a market action. So he's going to look, see if there's anything here he might want. He could get this weapon during ground combat. You may turn one of your focus results to a hit. If you have stealth or strength, gain +1. So he might want to buy that. So for his market action, now remember he could discard a card from the top of one of these stacks to the bottom, and he doesn't want to do that, but he does want to buy this. So he's got to pay 4,000. So he's going to put a 5,000 chit, get 1,000 back. And now he's going to buy this, and that is a gear. You can see that, so that goes here into one of his gear slots. And now he's got to flip this card over, and there's no patrol movement icon on the next one that came up, so he doesn't have to do that. So that's going to end his market action, and he doesn't have any other actions he wants to do, so now he's going to do an encounter. And for his encounter, he's going to encounter that contact that he knows is Ponda Baba, so he's going to encounter him. Now he could do the databank card of Ponda Baba, but he doesn't want to because he has this bounty. So instead of doing that, he's going to fight Ponda Baba. Ponda Baba gets has a ground combat of 2. Boba Fett has 3. Plus he gains 1 if he has stealth or strength, and he has stealth, so he has 4. And then if he gets any eyes, he can turn one of them to a hit. So he rolls his first. So he's going to roll his. Oh, Lord, he did terrible. All blanks, but one. So he only got 1 hit. Okay, now the person to the left of him would roll for Ponda Baba, who gets 2. And he got 1 hit as well. Now the attacker, when you're having combat, the attacker wins all ties. So Boba Fett gets lucky and wins this. But he does have to take 1 damage because he got 1 hit. So he takes 1 damage and puts that on his character. And he did get lucky and win, so he takes Ponda Baba's token. Now he has the choice where he can just eliminate him and get 5,001 fame, or he can capture him and deliver him, which that's what he's going to do. He's going to capture him and try to go deliver him. So anyway, that's the end of his encounter step. We'll do 1 more round. So now we're going to be back to Han Solo's turn. So we're at Han Solo's turn. He could, see, he's back at his planning step, so he could go ahead and move and go to Tatooine, or instead of that, he could gain 2,000 credits, or instead of that, he could recover. He's got 2 damage. He could recover that damage. If his ship takes 1 more damage, he'll be defeated. But he thinks he wants to go ahead and move. So he's going to move 1 space to Tatooine and stop. So now he's going to go to his action step. So one of the actions he's going to do is a deliver action. So he's going to deliver this cargo. So he's on Tatooine, so he gets 5,000 credits. That goes into his money. And now this card just gets discarded, and since it's a databank card, it goes back into the databank stack. Let me put that in there. Alright, so he did a deliver action, so he could still, do a market action, which I think maybe he's going to do that. Here's another cargo that's only 1,000, and it just has to go to Takodana, which isn't very far. Or he could hire a crew, which this crew lets him, before you perform a skill test, you may gain a skill of your choice. If you pass the test, discard this crew. Or he could buy a mod to give him. He doesn't really need another speed. I think he's going to go ahead and buy this cargo. Now you notice it says you cannot buy at Takodana because that's where it's dead. Most of these cargo that you can't buy them where they're supposed to be delivered. But he's not. He's on Tatooine, so he's going to buy that for 1,000. So he takes 1,000, put it in there. Now this is going to get flipped over, and it does have a patrol movement, so he's got to move the rebels 4 spaces closer to him. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can choose their movement, but if they could reach you in their movement, you have to let them reach you. Alright, so that's all the actions he's going to do in his action step. So now he goes to his encounter step. So he has the choice of drawing a card here for Tatooine, or he could look at one of those, flip one of those contact tokens and go to their databank card and do whatever it says. But he's just going to draw a card for Tatooine, so he's going to draw this, look at Tatooine, and it says you share information with the Hutts about the location of one of fugitives. You may spend 2,000 to move the Hutt patrol to a space of your choice. If you have positive Hutt reputation, you may do this for free. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to leave them. So this just gets discarded to the bottom of this deck. And that's going to end Han's turn. Alright, Dr. Aphra is still trying to get to Nal Hutta to do her job. So she's going to move for her planning step. She's going to move so she can move 5. That's going to get her there. So she goes 1, 2, 3. Now she's at Nal Hutta. So now it's her action step. So she could do a market action because she is at a planet. So what has she got? She's got 6,000. She could get another job because she does have a slot for another job or a bounty. She could get a cargo, or she could get this crew. Yeah, maybe she thinks she's going to get that crew, so she's going to spend 1,000. She'll take this crew, That helps her with a skill test. She puts it in her 1 crew slot, and she reveals this, and it has the syndicate moves 4 spaces toward her. So the syndicate's way over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. And now she's going to do her encounter action, or her encounter step. So for her encounter, she's going to do her job. So she has to be at Nal Hutta, and for a counter, she has to test piloting. Now, she doesn't have piloting normally, but she does have this, that once per turn before you perform a skill test, you may gain a skill of your choice for that test. So she's going to use that and choose piloting, and she could actually use her crew for that also, but if she's successful, then she has to discard that. So she's not going to use that crew right now. She's going to use her skill to give herself piloting. So she rolls 2. So she's skilled. She does have the skill. She's just not highly skilled. And boy, she should have used that crew, because then that focus result would have counted, but she didn't. So anyway, she fails. So she doesn't complete the job. If you fail, your ship suffers 1 damage, so she's got to get a damage token, put that on her ship, but she can just keep this job and try it again in the future. Alright, so we're back to Boba Fett. He's at his planning phase. He doesn't want to move because he wants to no, actually he does want to move because he wants to get to Takodana to deliver this bounty that he got. So he's going to move. His movement is 5. So he can move 1. Now he's got to move on to this syndicate patrol, and because he doesn't have positive reputation with that syndicate, he has to stop. He has no choice. So he's got to stop. He didn't really get to move very far. Maybe he shouldn't have chose movement. Maybe he should have done something else. I didn't really think that through very well. All right, so he has to stop. So now he's at his action step. Since he's not at a planet, he can't do a market action or anything. He's not on a planet, so he can't do this action. So there's really... he's not where somebody else is, so he can't do a trade action. So there's really not any action he can do. So he goes right to his encounter step. So now, if he had negative reputation with the syndicate, which he doesn't, but if he had negative reputation, his encounter would have to be to fight this patrol. But he has neutral reputation, so he could choose as his encounter action to fight that patrol, or he can just, since he's at a nav point, he can choose a nav point card, and I think he is going to just do the nav point card. So he does have a patrol there, so he's got to look for patrol. You may test stealth, which he does have. You may test stealth. If you pass, you may take an additional turn. If you fail, lose 1 reputation with the patrol in your space. Well, he's going to test it. It's a may, you don't have to. But he's going to test it since he has... Oh my god, I'm rolling like poop. Anyway, he failed. So, if you fail, lose 1 reputation. So he's got to lose 1 reputation with the syndicate. And now this just gets discarded to the bottom of that pile. So now next time, because now he has negative reputation with the syndicate, if he's in the same space, next time he does an encounter step with that syndicate patrol token, he'll have to fight it. But anyway, so that wasn't a very good turn for old Boba Fett. Well, I was hoping to see somebody get some kind of fame before I finish my example turns, but nobody did. Anyway, I think you kind of see how it works from my explanation and what I've shown here. It's kind of similar. Yeah, it's a pick up and deliver game in the Star Wars universe. It's kind of funny. I mentioned I'm going to play this with a couple friends of mine over Labor Day weekend. One of the other games that they had chosen to play was all with this. We were going to play Firefly, but then I said, well, those kind of they're both kind of a very similar game, only just in different universes. So we decided to go ahead and play this one instead of Firefly. Though I think personally, I think I prefer Firefly to this one. I think this one's fun, but I don't really like playing it solo by myself as 3 players. Now there is an AI system to play solo with, which I haven't tried, and I probably should. Excuse me. But we'll see. Since I'm gonna play it with 2 other players here shortly. I'll see if I really think it's you know more fun than it is playing just by yourself. It's okay playing by yourself, but not great. I'll say that. Anyway, um, this game does have an expansion, which I actually own and have not opened yet, but I am going to open it and throw all the expansion into it before we play it on Labor Day. But anyway, this video's gone on long enough. I just wanted to go ahead and say thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.